Hello, my name is Joe Strong, and I'm working with Bridges of Hope Ministry for the purpose of giving offenders a chance for new life outside of jail or prison. What you are about to hear are voices that seek to make this happen right here in Whatcom County. Honestly, this is of life and death importance. Please give your full consideration. Would you join us in this effort? Thank you.
My name is Marlon Moss. In 1983, I committed a crime. I spent the last 27 years in prison. When I was released in April of 2010, I was released without anything, a dime in my pocket. They had me dressed out in khaki pants and shirt, and I was brought back to California. And I was told that I would have to be there 3 months. And I didn't have a penny in my pocket, as I said, and had to borrow $10.
My name's Thad Allen. I worked in the field of corrections for over 30 years. A lot of the time that I've spent in corrections is as a re-entry specialist, working with transitioning offenders from prison and back to the community. Okay, we have to remember that offenders are coming from an environment where everything is controlled. They have very little input into the decisions that are made about their lives. It's very regimented and structured, and they're stepping from that into an environment where there are virtually no controls, and they have to make decisions about their daily life and their future. And often they're not prepared for that, and it's anyway an overwhelming process for them.
We find approximately 30 to 40% of the people that are booked into the jail reoffend within the next 3 years and end up back into the facility. And we try to look at things that may gauge someone's success when they're released, even though we don't have a lot of control over them once they're released. They're pretty much on their own. Many of the inmates lack any background in their faith, and they undergo some form of faith formation while incarcerated, but then they're released back out, and they're back over on Railroad Avenue hanging out with their old friends. So the chance of some continuity there and the good that's been done doesn't exist. And I think that's where the faith-based community can step in and provide some type of support and some type of options, so they don't necessarily gravitate back to the same type of people that have pulled them down in the past. I think they need good community-based role models to learn what it is to work, to learn what it is to live their faith and respect the rights of others. And I think that's why I'm so supportive of the work that Bridges of Hope is planning on doing here in our community.
Hello, my name is Bernie Mulder. I have lived in North Whatcom County for a little over 30 years. I met about 4 years ago, and this young man was about 30 years old, and he was just coming out of prison. And got to be really good friends with this guy, and found out that he needed to go back to prison. When he called me one day and said he was getting out of prison, he needed to go into some approved housing in Whatcom County. And so I got on the internet and started looking. The only approved housing for these young men are in Bellingham. And so we got him into one of these homes in Bellingham, and he could look out the window of that home and see his buddies on the streets. He lived on the streets for 10 years in Bellingham, and never did give up his old friends.
Hi, I'm Ray Barabo, and I've been involved with the Whatcom County Jail Ministry for about 12 years. The shock of coming out of prison was best described by the first guy I ever picked up in Monroe when I asked him, "What's it like to be out?" He said, "The colors." I said, "What?" He said, "The colors." And I never thought about it. When you're in prison, there's gray and blue. And here he was surrounded by all the colors we have in our community. And that's the kind of culture shock that exists when these people come out of prison. We need to be able to put them in a place where they can get reacquainted with freedom, making decisions, but learn how to make wise decisions based on Scripture. and based on good teaching.
As they're inside, but when it comes to getting out, they get out, they have only the clothes on their back, no job, no place to go, and oftentimes because of that they go right back to the place where they came from. Either they go back home to where the drugs were before, or their problems were before, or they end up going back to their friend's house, same problem. That's the only place they know where to go. And so that's been causes those same people to fall under the same problem. And before you know it, those same people are back in jail. Sometimes 2 or 3 weeks, sometimes 2 or 3 months, there they are, back. Sadly, this is a good example of what happens when there is not a place that's safe for people to go to after jail. Joe was a Native American, and he came into jail when he was 18. He had his birthday, 19th birthday in jail. He'd been there for 6 months. He started looking really, really good at the end of that 6 months because he'd been a heroin addict since age 13. Joe accepted Jesus in jail, and he ends up getting out of jail, all pumped up to get out, and he gets out on July 3, and on July 4, Joe's dead. Joe went back home. His mother was a heroin addict, and he started using right away after he got back home. That was the end of Joe's story. That is what happens to a lot of people as they get out.
And there's got to be a better way of reaching these men so that their lives change in a way that will allow them to overcome the problems they've had from youth. And there must be a way that we can bring them back into the community in a way that they can overcome their past.
I'm familiar with this project, and I believe it's a very good idea. I think the people involved are serious and dedicated to the successful outcome of the project. One thing I've found over the years is that housing is the most important key to this process. With housing, they have to have a place to store their stuff. They have to have a place to take care of their hygiene needs. They have to have an address to apply for a job. And they also need people that understand the situation that they're in, that offer limited financial support, but mostly emotional support during that time. Someone they can turn to and ask questions and begin to understand what this process is going to look like and what kind of resources are available. They also need to integrate into the community and realize that they're now part of a community, and that process takes time and a lot of support from the community.
There's not a day that when I visit the jail, there's not a day that goes by that someone doesn't tell me, Joe, I am really looking for a place to stay when I get out. I need a place. And Bridges of Hope will give people that stability that they're looking for and the structure that they're looking for. And we will be able to have a drug-free place. We'll be able to mentor people. We plan on helping people either find work or train people in a certain occupation so that they'll be prepared to go forward. And they might just stay here in our home for 6 months. They might stay there for 2 years. But the idea is to give stability so that they don't go back.
And I was so happy to come back to Washington, to Lynden, Washington, where I now live with my wife, Chris. And Lynden is where all my support for the last 27 years has been. People at Third Christian Reformed Church and the community have wrote letters whenever they were needed for the parole board. But I really want to stress how important it is to have a halfway house for people such as I, who is released without a cent in his pocket, and to have some support in which we could provide through our halfway house of Bridges of Hope.
Several years ago, I was asked to join the Reentry Coalition of Washington State, which was a combination of the Department of Corrections and the faith communities. One of the things we determined as far as assisting people on reentry is they must have invested in themselves while they were in prison, taken classes, worked, and gone to chapel services. By that demonstration of investing in themselves, we felt that the very scarce resource of reentry assistance would be available to them. The next step would be to go to the prison, a two-person team, and interview this person after they filled out an application to see if they really do qualify. After that, correspondence will take place, a relationship will be built with the person, and then we will plan for the day they are released from prison, jail, or treatment to bring them back into the community. So it's important that for those that are really committed to change, that we have a safe place for them to land with classes, programs, and the kind of teaching that all of us probably had as children that they missed out on. It's really important that the structure of the house be one that I call reparenting, because they have to have a positive view of themselves as a child of God with others in the community, building that community connection with job or school and men's groups, places where they can feel safe to overcome the damage in their life. They're going to need significant training, reprogramming of their mind, because a lot of damage has been done to these men. But they can be overcomers with the right group around them, and of course with the teachings from God's Word.
What can you do? We're looking for 4 things. We're looking for people who could mentor these men as they get out. We're looking for somebody who'd be willing to hire these men. And we're looking for somebody who would walk alongside these men and perhaps even teach them a trade. And last of all, we need funding. And we're looking for some major money, because if we don't put our money into this right now in our time, it comes back in bigger ways. And we end up paying for it over and over again. But this is the way we can be the Christ's hands and feet, just to change things out as they are.